What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Nexus. I hope you are all doing fantastic. We are here today for a special sort of podcast with our good friend Thorrk here. We are going to be talking about Store Showdowns and our picks of what we think would be good to play or what would maybe be fun to play. And yeah, chat about a bunch of stuff. Yeah, before that, we'll do some hellos. So how are you doing today, Ollie?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited to chat about some potential picks. I finally started doing some of my own deck building, so I feel like I have a bit more of a grip of how to play this game in general. So yeah,
That's a
ready to
scary
get into the juicy stuff.
That's a scary concept if you know Ollie from other games. Spicy, scary stuff. I'm looking forward to getting pummeled in testing soon. And we've also got Pierre here. How you doing, Thorrk?
Everyone, glad to be here for the first time.
Yes, great to have you. Today, Krish and Emmy are actually away on holiday, so we thought we'd get someone better in to fill their boots. No, just kidding. But yeah, no. Thanks very much for coming along. First off, we're just going to ask some small questions to you because on your podcast you talk a lot about the game, but you don't really talk about. So, what's your history with TCGs?
Yes, I've been playing TCG since I'm like 7 years old. So I'm 32 now. So you do the math. That's a long time. And I've been playing mostly Magic, mostly Eternal format like Legacy and Modern mostly. But also a lot of Draft. Then I played also in my early years. I played the Lord of the Ring TCG, the one with the movie pictures in the early 2000s. Excellent game, very underrated.
When you say play, did you play competitively or just casual?
Okay, well, the Lord of the Ring game is purely casual. I was very young when I played that game, early 2000s. So for Magic, I started casual and then I went pretty competitive. I did GPs. I even was part of testing group for like pro players. I did I was playtesting with some of the French pros that were preparing for pro tours. So and I was pretty decent. But the thing is, like, I never liked grinding tournaments. And the problem is, like, you can be really good at the game if you don't do, especially in Magic, if you don't do like 5 GP a year at least, and 25 PTQs, then you have no shot at winning unless you're really lucky. So I felt I was decent at the game, but I was also more. The problem is, like, I've never really played standard. And once again, if you play Magic competitively and you don't play standard, that's like 3/4 of the tournaments that you cannot attend to. So I was mostly playing for I was playing very competitively, but I was playing the format that I like. I was not grinding to get into PTs and stuff. And then I played. Then I played Legend of the Five Rings. I was doing pretty well there. I think I was the first European to be 3 times Adamoto. Adamoto means like you're the best performing player of a given clan for tournaments, and they have like all this crazy stuff in Legend of Five Rings. So I was doing pretty good the first year, but after a year I kind of like the community died in my locals, so I kind of gave up on the game. Then I played a lot of online TCGs. My favorite one was Duelist, which is like the TCG where you can move your units on the grid. So it has this positioning aspect. An absolute excellent game. I think I was top 500 on this game. Top 50, sorry, top 50 on this game at some point. I was pretty good at it too. But and then I played Legend of Runeterra. I thought the game was fine. So I played it because it was free. It was very free-to-play player, and I didn't know what else to play.
Ollie was a big fan of that.
Yeah, I'm sure all of my mates have heard me chat enough about Legends of Runeterra and trying to get them to play Star Wars because of how similar it is and how much I loved them both.
Yeah, no, I mean, Legend of Runeterra is it's probably the game I played the most that I like the least, if that makes sense. Like, among the games that I've played a lot, it's the one that I like the least. So I like the game, but it was like So I mean, obviously, I played a ton of other card games, but not enough. Like I played 2 weeks of Hearthstone, that kind of thing. Like obviously, tried different games, and then finally, I played obviously Star Wars Unlimited. Like, of course.
That's the game you got to next. So what attracted you into Star Wars initially?
Yeah, well, I'm not a big Star Wars fan.
Same as
but
Ollie.
I'm a big FFG fan. I think FFG makes a lot of very good games. And I thought that I was not very excited about this game at the beginning, especially since like Destiny was like, especially with what happened with Destiny. Then I started looking at the rules, and the game basically had all the mechanics that I love from other card games, but combined in one game.
Nice.
And also because it was Star Wars, I had good hopes that it was going to be successful. And when you were seeing the trend in the market and how successful all the newer card games are, I was like, this game can be something. So started playing it in September 2023, so almost 8 months before release.
Were you just like playing online and tabletops?
Yeah, and even attending tournaments.
Oh.
They were like a whole like smaller community of early adopters of the game. A lot of people that you may know.
Take
like,
the initiative.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure most people have delved into Star Wars content. Have some take the. It's everywhere. You've talked about the channel.
Yeah. I mean, like even players like Tara Number 9, content creator, that is actually the first person I played against ever, and he recorded that game. So my very first game of Star Wars Unlimited is actually recorded on YouTube somewhere.
Okay.
I'll pick it up for you someday.
Yeah,
It's not pretty to see, but
I'll be interested to see how you develop since then.
You guys need to get some commentary over that game.
Yeah, just you hear loads of like palm slaps into the head, like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, I was playing Tarkin Green.
Oh, nice.
But it was like very early on, so there was very few cards that were spoiled at that time. So that was funny. And so yeah, even like people like Wu were playing, and then we even had like the very first tournament ever organized, like a small community tournament. I remember, and I actually won it. So I actually won the first community tournament.
There you go.
Back in the days, but it was really good fun because it was very funny because the meta was changing every time there was a new spoilers was revealed. So it was like a week by week meta that was very fun.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
And just out of curiosity, the top 8 of that tournament was something like so it was 6 Boba Green. So my deck was supposed to
sounds like Twickenham.
A Vader Green. Yeah, so it was like I was playing Vader Green. It was 6 Boba Green, and they were like 1 Sabine Yellow, I believe. So that was the top 8. Back in those days, Sabine Yellow was much better than Sabine Green because we didn't have all the cards.
So what encouraged you to start doing content?
Okay, well, so it's actually a guy that you might know of. Is a friend of mine called Ross, also known as Rosalto on Discord. He's a English guy from London.
Okay.
And he told me, well, you should do content. You got so much knowledge about the game. And then I saw Tara Number 9. He was really making content just with a video, no very little cutting, like just his face and a webcam and that's it. And I think that I was like, I can do that. I can do something like this. So I started doing it, and then the channel took off from there.
Yeah, I mean, it took off really well, I'd say, because when I got interested in starting to play the game properly, I did the demo very early on last year. I hadn't played online. I did an in-person demo with Ollie, Liverpool, other game, Battle Spirit, Dragon Ball Masters, I imagine.
So, yeah.
But they had
the time Andre was in the pizza onesie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just so after our tournaments, we just dragged ourselves over there because there as a sort of surprise. It wasn't announced or anything. I was instantly like, yep, I'm playing. But yeah, when I started getting into the game properly, a bit after Set 1 had been released, I looked on YouTube, as you do, to kind of learn the ropes of the meta. And to be honest, your content was like the most highest recommended on the algorithm. And yeah, I got into it from there. You're like you say, you're quite thorough and you know quite a lot. So it's really, really great content, especially for wanting to get into the meta. I don't know about you, Ollie. You kind of felt the same. We talked a lot about his videos as we first started, right?
Yeah. When I look into new card games, a lot of the time, like the first thing I'll do is just start searching stuff on YouTube, and I'll avoid a lot of the clickbait titles. And your videos were some of the ones that I watched, and immediately from just watching the way you spoke, I knew that you knew your way around the game and deck building. So
yeah,
this is the guy that I'm gonna follow for a little bit, just so that I can dip my toes in.
It made set one much easier because it was like, this guy knows so much. There's no point in even trying to get that much knowledge together this early. And yeah, I don't know. It definitely helped early on just to sort of get my feet wet. So thanks very much. And if you want to check out Thorrks' channel, we will have a link in the comments. Very, very good. And you're doing quite a lot of content, right? Do you have a set schedule, or do you just release every now and again, or how do you go with?
I used to do 3 videos a week.
Yeah.
And then, but recently I've been very, very busy because I moved into a new house.
Yep.
So now I do when I can, pretty much. So I try two a week, pretty much. But I'm trying to pick back up when I find more time.
Fantastic. Looking forward to more content as always. And yeah, finally, how's your experience been since the game's been out? I mean, we've met at a couple of tournaments, done a bit of traveling. How have you been enjoying it? Has it been lived up to the hype you had when you were playing it before it was even released?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing before the game was released because, as I said, the meta was changing all the time. Was very, very cool. I was not expecting to enjoy it that much, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. And then the pre-release was a lot of fun. It really brought me back to pre-release in Magic. That is very exciting moment. You get to play the card for the first time. You get to play casually. It's really good fun. And then we have a very small but very cool community in Ireland, in Dublin, where I play. The community is small, but everybody is nice. There's no... I've been in many communities in Magic, and there's always a handful of guys that are just complete dicks. And in Star Wars Limited was not the case at all. Everybody was very friendly. It was not only friendly towards me, it was friendly to each other as well. No problem. It was a very drama-free community. A lot of dads, they don't have time to...
Exactly, yeah.
The community of Star Wars Limited is just basically dads.
Yeah, pretty much. It's
for the most part, yeah.
That's the age target, right? So yeah, no. Yeah. But yeah, so no, it's great to have you in the community. Content creators like yourself are very important. And yeah, I mean, like I said before, your content's been great, and it definitely encouraged me to move into Star Wars content as well, because we were doing Battle Spirits before this. But yeah, I just decided to take the leap because the game is. But yeah, enough of all that. Let's get into talking about the showdowns that are coming up. So showdowns are currently happening across the UK and Ireland. And yeah, we're here to kind of discuss what we think is good picks for them. So we'll start off with Ollie. This might be an obvious one because he's already done a profile video on the channel for it. But let's talk about why. So ECL Han 2. Why do you think this is a good pick for this tournament? And one thing as well, just to make it a bit more interesting, let me know how your mentality differs from a big tournament to a Store Showdown, if it does it.
So yeah, going into Han to ECL, I think this deck is a really solid pick for a Store Showdown. I feel like the deck is very malleable. It has a lot of good options to deal with any tough matchups, but it has a lot of good matchups at the same time. I also think that the deck has a relatively low floor, but a pretty high skill ceiling. So the more that you play the deck, the better you're going to get with it, and that's going to display a lot in your results as well. But also when you start out, like, you know that you want to just find Maz and 2/1 drops, and sometimes that's enough to just carry you through a game. But then obviously the more you play, the more you realize that sometimes there are times where, or matchups where you don't want to find that opening, or there are different side deck options that you can go into that will make your openings a little bit different or a little bit stronger. And yeah, it's an all-round very fun deck to play. I feel like it has a lot of skill expression, like I said, but it's also relatively easy to get into. Another good example of that is the fact like ECL, Poe, and Wrecker are just like amazing cards. And when you start playing the deck, it's most of the time you can just get away with ECL, Poe, or ECL, Wrecker on their leader, and that can be enough to carry you. But then, yeah, the more you play the deck, the more you might find different options, especially in the Sabine matchup. You want to use ECL a lot earlier.
Absolutely. So you think, would you say this deck's probably like stronger in the Store Showdown sort of level of play? Or because obviously you played it at a big tournament and you played it at your... Do you think it differs from the different tournaments, or do you think it's just like consistently good and does what you need it to?
Yeah, the size of the tournament is not really something I've thought about a whole lot, to be honest. But it's definitely a consistent enough deck that it can carry you through those larger tournaments. Like a Store Showdown is going to be bigger than the locals. And so I do think you need a consistent deck, and also not necessarily a taxing deck. Like if you play a control deck or a deck that's a little bit harder to play, it can really tax you mentally throughout the day. And while a Store Showdown isn't going to be the biggest tournament in the world, for a lot of players, it is the biggest tournament that they might go to, because they might just want to go to locals or Store Showdowns that are in their areas, rather than taking the time and the money to go to these bigger tournaments that might be further away and more costly.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you thought about what you think your opponents are going to play? Is that a factor in your deck choice here? Or is it, again, just, you know that it's good in an all-round sort of setting?
Yeah, so I think it's fairly common knowledge to agree that the top 3 decks to beat are going to be like Sabine Green, Boba Yellow, and probably Kira Green. And I feel like this deck has a really good matchup into Boba Yellow and Kira Green in general. Sabine is a little bit trickier to navigate, but I think that you can, with enough practice, that's a matchup that can become pretty favored as well.
Fair enough. So, Thorrk, do you have any thoughts on this deck? Have you tested it out at all? I'm sure you have. What are your thoughts on it? We're talking about the zoo version of the deck.
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to put it. Like zoo is basically, when this deck has been developed by Beton, also known as Voltor, and he's in my testing group, and so I was one of the first person who got to first for probably SIP, but then after, like, I was one of the first to actually got to experience playing against this, and it's a very good deck, of course. So basically the zoo approach is the idea that you're going to be giving up on reach in order to get more bolt centric. So if you're playing against something that doesn't have a lot of removal, then the deck is going to perform much better than a Sabine, because you can kill so much faster. A little bit in the same way as Leia was a bit more zoo in set 1 compared to Sabine. It's the same with Han. He's a bit more zoo, but even more extreme. Like he's really zoo, like very swarming the board. And I think that approach is very good against decks that have fewer removal. If you play against something that has less removal, that have more removal, though, it's a bit more complicated, because then if you have no board, you don't have, for cause I believe in, you don't have the same reach tools that Sabine has. You don't have the ping of Sabine to kind of finish game off. So it depends on what you expect. Of what you expect. So, but I think it's a very solid deck, of course.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, Han 2, a lot of people have been playing the Han Blue deck. That isn't actually any of our picks. Do you guys think, how do you rate that deck? And briefly, do you think that's a good deck, Ollie? kind
The
of
blue version.
yeah. You think a lot of people are playing it in the tournament, right? Do you think it's
Yeah.
bait though?
I think it gets overrepresented for how good I think it's a decent deck, but I think people play it a lot more than it should be, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you? Yeah,
I don't really agree. I think it's a great deck. I
yeah,
think it's very. It's
yeah.
I think people play for good reason. It's very consistent. It can beat anything. It's very consistent because Han's abilities allows you to always play stuff on curve. Being able to cheat stuff into play thanks to Han ability is literally fixing the major issue that this color combination had in set one, which was being too slow. It was too fair, too slow, and basically Han fixed the issue. So,
but it's still not quite good enough. We haven't really seen can't. Oh, I guess the one did perform quite well.
it's making top 8 all the time.
Yeah.
I think in every top 8 there's one on blue. So I think I don't have the numbers in mind, but I think the win rate of the deck is in par. Like,
I mean,
I think
I've tested
Manchester,
it quite a bit. I've tested it quite a bit, and to be fair, it did seem very oppressive. You know, especially when you're able to kill it. Seems. Yeah.
I think in Leicester it was the most represented deck, or like among the most, and it didn't do top 8, and people were like, "Oh, this deck is terrible," but no, they didn't realize that you go top 16. There are 3 of them.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like you just need to look a little bit
it's
lower.
fine margins. It's always fine margins.
Yeah.
Tournaments. But yeah, so we'll get on to another one. Talking of bounty, let's talk about boss. So this is one of Thorrks picks, Bosk Blue, I believe. Talking about. Tell us why. I mean, obviously it won the big one, Spain. Tell us why you think it's great.
Not specifically for Store Showdown, just for any tournament. I think Bosk Blue is like basically I've been trying to play. I've been trying to make hard control work, and what I couldn't do, Jordan did it. So Jordan's the guy who won the tournament, and it turns out I was a bit too far ahead of the curve. So let me explain myself. So I've been experimenting a lot with Boba Blue, and but my Boba Blue had problems against aggro, and Boss Blue fixes that issue. Like, Boss Blue is so much better. It basically retains all the qualities that a hard control has, which is beating all the mid-range decks, but it can beat aggro as well, because it has access to early game removal like False Choke, like Open Fire. It has insane way to heal because it can go up target, client, double heal, il-10, il-12. That's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
and then it has
the
insane
client
late
seems
game because
the client
Sorry?
seems very strong in that. Can you explain to people that don't know, because obviously the clients oh well, no, you're playing it in blue, right? People play it off color anyway in Bosk. Why is it so good? Why do you think it's like the key card in the deck at the moment?
No, not really. I mean, I have a very poor opinion about the client in general. I think the card is very slow. It's very difficult to use. But obviously in this deck, when it can heal for 10, that's a different story. I actually prefer, in the deck, I prefer top target over client. I find top target much easier to use and much cheaper. So the key card, against aggro, the key card is going to be having access to. It's not really a one card in particular. It's just that it's having access to False Choke, Open Fire as super efficient early removal that blue doesn't have access to. And then combined with the ability to double heal with the Bosk and top target. So you play top target, summon Bosk, and then you kill the unit that has top target on it. You heal 12. And with one card, like, it's just absurd. and the client you can heal 10. So client is going to be very good as well. It's a bit easy, but it's a lot harder to use. That's why I prefer top target, but I play both. Like I think you need to play both.
Do you think that's the main strategy is kind of keeping your health, keeping yourself healed as possible mid game?
It's a control deck, so the more you can if you're trading a deck aggro is gonna spend tempo in order to deal you damage. So you're gonna be, by healing, you're gonna be negating that tempo. You're gonna be negating, and then if you can keep the ball clean and keep yourself healthy, you reach the late game. And once you reach the late game, you start dropping down Palpatine, Avenger, and Krayt Dragon. That's another great quality of the deck, is like it can combine the great late game blue-black cards like Avenger, Snoke, and with the great late game red cards, which are Palpatine and Krayt Dragon. So I don't know if you ever try to play aggro when someone has a Snoke in play. It's not very easy.
Yeah.
So you play Snoke, you can lock the game out against aggro very well with that. But of course you need to get there, and this is what the heal is for.
Absolutely. So yeah, Ollie, I know you're a big Bosk fan. We just did a Bosk video on the channel. Go check it out if you haven't already. Have you experimented with Bosk Blue at all?
No, not myself personally. It was something that I was thinking about testing for Manchester a little bit, but I just never had time. There are a lot of things on my list that I wanted to try for Manchester, but I had a week between Leicester and Manchester, and there was nowhere near enough time to mess around with that stuff.
For sure.
I think I did see one at Manchester, and it sparked that, like, this is one of the decks I was thinking of. That's cool to see. And then obviously it did well in Spain, and that's also amazing.
So what about matchups? What are its bad and good matchups? Or do you think it's a overall good pick at the moment in the meta?
Yeah, I think in the meta overall it's a great pick because it beats pretty much everything, but it has a weakness, but this weakness is not very widely popular. So that's a good thing. So the weakness of that deck is going to be playing what I was talking about earlier, and the reason I was saying I was ahead of too far ahead of the curve is that I think the counter to this deck is going to be a Boba Blue deck, or any hard control deck that plays yellow. The reason is because if you're playing hard control versus hard control, nothing in your deck matters except vigilance. That's pretty much the name of the game. The idea is your units don't matter because your opponent has so many removal, they're going to get off the board. You're not playing enough units to overcome the amount of removal the opponent has. So it's just a game of just, okay, you can drop your Avenger for fun, but that's not going to be winning you the game. What winning you the game is playing vigilances. And therefore, what is the best way to win the game even more is to get more vigilances. How do you get more vigilances? By playing Bounty Hunter Crew and getting back your vigilance from your discard back into your hand, or by preventing your opponent playing the vigilances. The only way to do this is to play Bazine and discard your opponent vigilances as well. So if you're playing a boss deck, Bosk Blue, and you're playing against a Boba deck that has those cards, the matchup, you can't win. Like it's, I'm not exaggerating. You literally cannot win because, like, the dynamic of any card game is if you get a bad matchup, the games are short. You can always plan on being lucky or having the right sequence of card that allows you to win a matchup that you normally should be losing. But in a control versus control, you basically draw almost your entire deck every game because the game goes so long. That means that there's no space for variance. That means that he's going to win every single time because he's going to have accordingly he's playing well, of course. He's going to be playing the Bazine. He's going to discard your vigilances, and then he's going to play Bounty Hunter Crew. He's going to get bad vigilances, and he's going to mill you out, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's one way to counter. Another way to counter is to do exactly what people try to do in set 1, which worked pretty well, is just to have a very strong anti-out control package. We've seen... for example, those hand blue decks that have a lot of pillage. They play pillage, they play fourth throw, they play lots of discard, and they play every single card in their deck. Those 2 for 1. You play like 3 Yodas, 3 K2SOs, and you go discard, draw, discard, draw, discard. So mechanically, you get 2 cards every time your opponent gets this 1 card. At the end of the day, you're going to have a million cards in the hand, is going to have 0 card, and you basically outvalue the person like this. So I thought it was quite effective, and you can do this if you play hand blue. Also, I would say if you're playing Kira, it's going to be difficult matchup for you unless you have, if you play like 3 Relentless with like 3 Palpatine's Return, like you can kind of outvalue people. Like I've made a video about it, how to counter hard control. I literally have a video about it. It's the same principle. Basically, we are kind of entering the same. The Barcelona tournament is kind of Orlando 4K 2.0. It's basically the story repeats itself. The dynamic of the meta is exactly the same as in Spark of Rebellion. I don't know if you guys realized. So if things happen the same way they happen in Spark of Rebellion, hard control is going to become a thing, and you're going to see decks like this appearing. You're going to see decks that are here to beat hard control. You're going to see Han is going to come back because Han Green, Han Yellow is extremely good versus hard control. Tech DJ.
I'm waiting for that hard control meta. Like I'm telling you, it's been hard waiting though. I'm not gonna lie.
Talking about Hold Honor, by the way, not the but
Han 1,
great matchup.
Han 1's my boy.
I mean, you play new Han, Old Han or Yellow.
Yeah.
You play 3 Body Rook. You play 3 Spark of Rebellion. You play 3 DJs with the DJ tech combo, which is insane against control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What are you supposed to do against this?
Like hard countering the meta.
Yeah. So basically, the short answer is, I think Han Blue can adapt its deck to have a decent matchup. But if you really want to crush hard control, play Han Yellow, Han Green, or Boba Blue.
All right.
Or any control deck based on yellow, basically.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next deck. This is more of a spicy from Ollie. Really interesting. Doing some testing with it soon on the channel. So, Hondo Blue.
Oh, actually, well, I'll explain that a little bit. Yeah, so I've spent this last week basically playing a lot of Hondo. Partially Hondo Blue, which I will cover, but actually the main one is Hondo Green.
Double green.
I think a lot of this is, again, based on theory. If you want a safe choice out of my picks, go with Han ECL. Realistically,
yeah, of course,
it's going to be the better deck. But I'm throwing this in here as a curveball to see if I can get the early. I don't know what the phrase is. Get the early
Stamp on it.
Yeah.
As your. I mean, to be fair, in Dragon Ball, Ollie's known for playing a deck called Bojack, which is like a really spicy sort of off meta deck. You've had great success with it. I'm getting similar vibes with this. You wanna break the meta with something.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we know Hondo Blue is a decent deck. It did well in that. I think across all 3 days in Gen Con, it made top 16 or top 8. It definitely popped up a couple times at least. I think the Hondo Blue might just be a worse version of Kira realistically, but it's definitely got some like legs, and the blue-green villainy package is never going to be a bad combination. My theory behind Hondo Green is that it's going to play very similarly to Palpatine Green, but it has an earlier deploy. And it can also make up for the fact that you don't have the draw power on the front side with the fact that you run a smuggle package and you get value out of that, alongside the experience to help against aggro. That's pretty much what there is to it. It's just a Palpatine Green that has a little bit more game into aggro. And in the games that I have been testing, it does feel like it can compete with aggro decks, while still having pretty decent game into control with just, command, Palpatine's return, lots of recycling on your big units, ending games with Devastator, Maul, Vader, standard stuff. The main, obviously, downside is that you don't have the Palpatine flip, which is a great utility tool in the control mirrors. Being able to steal cards like Avenger and Devastator and Relentless is absolutely insane. But also just getting value from stealing like a Maul or a Vader is still a lot of the time good enough to win those games. So yeah, that's something that I haven't figured out yet, is whether it's actually better than Palpatine Green into control, or at least can still win that matchup enough to be a contender. It does probably still end up losing to Palpatine Green, but yeah, it's just a little curveball that I'm going to throw in there.
What about the deck makes it fun? What are the play lines? Yeah, they can't.
So it feels like it has pretty decent space contention just because of Collection Star Hopper in an early game. It means you don't have to run cards like Consortium Star Viper, which they take up like space in your hand against these control matchups as well. Whereas you can just main deck Collection Star Hopper, put it into your resource, and then you still get value out of it in the control matchup. But it also gives you contention into space against aggro to kill things like Red 3 or the Green Squadron A-Wing. And then, yeah, just a lot of the time against aggro, you don't have to ramp because you have these cards in Smuggle that fill out your curve. But then also, if you do ramp, you have access to Timely Intervention plus your 3-drop. And that can make for some big swing turns as well. A lot of the time, Timely Intervention with like a Phase 3 Dark Trooper, kill something, buff it up, it's a Sentinel. It becomes like a 5-3 a lot of the time, which then trades into Sabine Leader as well. It just feels like it has a lot more game into aggro than a Palpatine Green would, especially with the earlier deploy. Being able to use the deploy in conjunction with an overwhelming barrage before you've lost the board too far feels very relevant. Or even using it with command to clear a unit and buff Hondo. And then, yeah, just all rounds, like I said before, the good recycling into control helps the matchup as well.
Awesome. Really spicy sort of play lines. Best take. What do you think, Thorrk? Obviously, I'm not sure how much you thought about Hondo. It sounds like it could be interesting. Like I said, we will have videos coming on the channel soon showing this deck in action.
Yeah, this will be a deck that I work on a little bit.
It's funny because I was hearing you about the more like early game Palpatine, and I have the exact same thought process for Gideon instead of Hondo. As a sort of like when I play Gideon Green, I very relatively early on I worked on a Gideon Green, that is basically just Palpatine Green deck that has a bit more game against aggro. Because it has this +1 attack bonus that can trade into those aggro units. You can use your Super Technician to trade with those Battlefield Marine, and then in the late game you get access to the Gideon Light Cruiser, which is pretty nice. So it's a deck. I don't think it's the thing is like my problem is like on my channel I always want to put decks that I think are do something that other decks don't. Either do something that other than deck, or do something that the current deck do but better. If it doesn't fall into any of those two boxes, I don't feature the deck, and that's why I didn't feature my Gideon Green. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should be featuring decks that I think are a bit weaker but are interesting.
I mean, in the interest of fun, trying to diversify from everyone just being like Boba Green, Sabine Green. It's like I think it's fun to see creators come out of that shell a bit, because it's not quite as safe, right? Do decks which might not be as good.
Yeah. There's that. I mean, maybe I'm gonna need to. And to be fair, I think that could be a good idea. Like I don't know yet if I'm gonna.
Yeah,
do
I mean, maybe if you put out a thumbnail like Gideon, is this the new best deck? ? And then
no, please.
I'll get a lot of views at least.
It would, yeah. You could literally start it off and be like, well, the answer is no, it's not. But here's my deck list.
You'd see the viewer retention just drop off from that sentence.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah, no, it's like I try not to because I feel like it's a small enough community that once you start baiting people once, they won't come back for the next time, or they'll be like
exactly right.
So I've decided never to do that.
It's good.
I've been accused of clickbaiting a couple of times. But,
I've seen those comments. I find them hilarious. Yeah,
I'm sure you. Sure you defend yourself though. Always like watch the video. Sometimes. Normally the answer I'm assuming.
Yeah. but they don't want to, so that's fine.
Yeah, they're too busy. They're too busy commenting about the videos. But yeah, we move. This video's gone on way too long. One more choice. We've got Boba ECL, right? Or was it just Boba Green?
Boba Green.
Yeah, just
no
Boba Green.
ECL.
Oh, ECL, just the 30.
I'm such a meta slave. I literally named the 2 decks that won the last 2 big tournaments.
Well, I mean, you know, at least it's justified in choice. Talk to us about Boba. We featured it quite a bit on Alex. Great success. Why do you think it's still the top dog?
Well, I don't think it's top dog, but I think it's a good deck. I think if the meta shift into out control, you might not want to play this deck anymore. But I'm not sure the shift has fully happened. I'm still pretty sure that there's a lot of people that might be scared in playing a hard control deck in tournaments, that kind of thing. So it really depends on your meta, right? I believe that when I saw Josh decks, I thought it was genius. And when I realized that it was very poorly built and I could improve it, I mean, it made me very excited because like this deck is it's mediocre and amazing at the same time. It's hard to describe. It has some genius ideas in there that really only like a free thinker can really find. Someone who is really able to be like truly innovative. But in the meantime, it had stuff that was so like obviously wrong. That makes it so it makes you very excited because I just have to take this deck and just fix the issues and it will be an amazing deck.
Yeah,
and it is.
I've
been playing quite a bit with it and it's really, really strong. And
out of curiosity, what are the differences made?
Obviously the 54 the 4 extra cards.
That's the most controversial point.
Everyone has been
yeah,
saying,
that is the most controversial.
And I actually saw his interview, but we're gonna get spicy. We're here to be spicy, guys. Okay, let's do it. So I saw his interview. It was like, oh yeah, because you know, like it's a toolbox deck, blah blah blah. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, no. But I think it was like, oh yeah, in the last game, I won because I had full cards left in my deck.
Yeah, I did see that comment. Yeah,
please.
That's his justification of having. Well, no, just to be fair, he went into the math of it, and it was basically it didn't affect his chance of being.
It does.
By a few percent.
It's just that he picked a number that is like as long as it's like 30%. I don't know what the number was, 50 or 30.
50%. 50% flat was.
Exactly, yeah. So it was like as long as 50%, I'm happy. Like no, that's not. I mean, it's like the thing is like the card that you're gonna be wanting to draw the most is gonna be different in every matchup. So by playing 50 full cards, you are reducing your chance to find the best card of your deck, and that card is gonna be different in every matchup. So it's like I don't know. You play against Hondo Green, let's say. Barrage is the best card of your deck. You draw Barrage, you're in a really good position. You play 54 cards, you're reducing your chance of finding Barrage. But at the end of I don't want to make this a bigger deal than what it is.
No, of course, yeah. It's
just
still opinion and lighthearted.
Yeah, but it's a small percentage chance. Like 54 cards is not like it doesn't change the math like insanely.
Yeah,
but it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah, you think because it affects the whole deck.
No, there's a couple of things that I basically thought was better, but obviously this is only my opinion, of course.
Yeah.
And then this deck did top 8 in the I mean Boba Green, not in CL. Once again, the version was different. The guy fixed most of the issues. The Spanish guy, I forgot his name. I'm sorry. We did top 8 with Boba Green, non-ECL, and I think this deck is very good. I think it has fixed the early game of the deck. ECL Green was so Boba in general is just not a great early game, and now the new line of plays of Clunky, Crumb, like that kind of stuff, or like Greedo, McClunky, Greedo. those like super strong line of play makes it that even in the early stage of the game, where this is the moment in the game where you traditionally boba are the weakest, now they are super strong. Even in those early games, and that's super scary because then after this, you're playing the best 3-drop in the game, you play best 5-drop in the game, you ramp, you play best 5-drop in the game, you go nuts with those things, you play the fire spray, and then you go bananas, and then you have those 6-7 drops. You're like, well, I'm gonna be playing 6-7 drops, and it's such a good idea. It's such a I don't know. It's the kind of thing that I wish I could have come up with.
Yeah,
it's like
fair enough.
One of these decks when you see it, you're like, oh, I wish I would have come up with that idea. I wish I would have had the time to test that.
Fair enough.
It's brilliant, and there's a lot of cool stuff in this deck. There's a lot of interesting synergies. It's a lot more value grinding. It also changed the paradigm so much because we were talking about a tempo deck. Now we're talking about a value deck that is able to really grind the game with carb veins and stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff about this. Even though, of course, at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves. It's the good old Boba Green, right? But it has some stuff to it that makes it stronger against deck in which it was traditionally weak against, and I think that's the big deal.
So Ollie, you're a big fan of Boba, but more Boba yellow. What's your sort of view on that, on the divide between these? Obviously, they both have a different sort of functionality, but why do you kind of prefer yellow over green, personally?
I don't like that I've been pinned as the Boba yellow guy.
I mean, you played at UK Expo, so
I did, yeah, I did. Maybe I'll live to regret that. I don't think I've touched the deck in set 2.
I know you just keep threatening us with it, like if we don't stop complaining about it.
If you mean stop playing Hondo, I can start playing Boba Green.
But no, what about Boba Green? What's your view on this deck? Because obviously about it.
Yeah, I think the deck's really solid. And I saw the Gen Con version, which I think looked pretty similar to Joshua's version.
Is that Alex? Alex's?
Yeah. I know it had the
They're friends actually. They're both top Final Fantasy.
Oh, okay, nice.
Top 8.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I saw a lot of similarities between the list. And yeah, I think the switch to 30 health makes a lot of sense, and going for the more value game is very clever. I don't think Boba had like the greatest ECL targets beforehand, anyways, and even more so now with the change. And it obviously gives the deck more game into aggro, which it already had pretty good matchups into aggro from what I remember. And also it just gives the deck access to overwhelming barrage over like a Boba yellow, as well as having great top ended to control, which I think is more where Boba yellow struggles.
When you sit down against Boba Green, is it a sight for sore eyes? Is it something you don't want to be doing? How do you feel
it depends on what deck I'm playing.
Yeah, obviously.
If I'm playing a deck like Han ECL and I sit down against Boba Green rather than Boba yellow, I'm a lot more scared of the Boba Green because that deck has overwhelming barrage.
Yeah. It's arguably the best card in the game. A card I really hate.
The best card in the game.
Yeah,
definitely amazing.
It was the best card in the game when I started playing this game, where we only had like a third of the card pool, because it was one of the very first card that got spoiled, and it still is the best card in the game.
Yeah, I
after one set, and I suppose, especially with the very swarmy theme of the next set, it's probably going to be the best card in the game.
Yeah, it's probably going to continue to be the best card. Yeah, oh goodness.
Just to bounce back on what Holly was saying, is like, yes, the deck has a lot of new tech against aggro, but because it has a 30 HP base and it has more game against aggro in the very few turns a game with McClunky Delicious Crumb, it can afford to play more late game. That's why it can afford to play 6-7 drops.
And then sometimes reinforce. But yeah.
And also the ramp means you don't have to fill your deck with like 4 drops in the 4 Lomzakas combo as well.
True. Yeah. And a lot of the top players definitely are off that comp there. Because it was quite hot at first, but it died off a pretty But yeah, so that is the 4 picks from you two. Thank you very much for your insight on that. Just to conclude, if we could put our finger on one deck overall that we would recommend to go for the win local showdown, what would it be? What would you? This is like a question time on the round, like final.
Out of the 4 ones we suggested, or just in general?
In general, yeah. It doesn't have to be any of the ones we suggested because obviously they're personal picks. Fun and you could put your finger on one deck, have the best chance of winning the whole thing. I'll go to Ollie first because you look more perplexed.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I mean, I would say personally, Hondo Blue is a very good. I played it a lot of local. A lot of people just don't get me wrong. It's not the best. It's not like a perfect deck, but a lot of people do find it hard to deal with it. Then just throw a pillage in there, and that can sometimes just throw them off. You know, the psychological side of it, so very strong in the local game. People don't like playing cards in hand. I think that deck can just do. Yeah, what do you think?
I think in terms of going for the win, I'd probably recommend Kira Green. I feel like as long as you dodge the Palpatine matchups, which I don't want to throw random shots at, but
Yeah, I mean, don't you think there'll be a lot of Palp matchups in these local tournaments? I mean, that's what I'm expecting.
I think once you get past the first couple of rounds, I imagine Sabine and Boba will generally be most represented. I imagine once you get past the first couple of rounds, a lot of the Palpatines will get knocked down by Sabines.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
That's exactly what I was planning on.
And then one Palpatine makes it to top with one Sabine matchup.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna go for like top 8, Sabine or probably Boba Yellow as well are both great picks. But I think if you want the win, Kira has probably the best matchup spread.
Fair enough. What about you?
Okay, well, I'm going to reframe this question because I don't think this question is very good. I'm sorry, Josh.
Fair enough.
I think the question is like, what is your meta look like? What does your meta looks like? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I almost got clipped my microphone. Anyway, it's what does your meta looks like? What is popular in your area? Try to identify, especially in small tournament like this, you can clearly identify what sort of deck is popular in your area. You can, one of the characteristics of a showdown over like a big tournament is you can identify who are the good players. Like in Ireland, for example, we have small showdowns. I know that there's only a handful of players I want to be, I'm scared of because it's such a small community. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, what are they going to bring in? Try to bring the right deck, and then in a sense, so what is the most the well positioned deck? It depends. Like I think boss control, I think is very good, but it's if I fall into a meta that is full of Han, I'm gonna lose. Like if I full of Han, or if I full of like of stuff that are really stuff against out control, it's not gonna feel good. So it's really relative to what you're gonna be playing against.
Yeah,
if you fall against
just to defend my my question's honor, my locals actually gets like 60 people for Showdown, so you know what I mean. It's a bit different having is more, but obviously
absolutely,
it's different from locals to locals.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm talking about like generally speaking, showdowns are gonna be like on average for most of our viewers, showdowns are gonna be in the neighborhood of 60 to 30 players.
Yeah.
16 to 30 players. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
So I think so in the 16 player tournament or in a 30 players tournament, you can definitely kind of anticipate what kind of meta you're going to be playing against, and then try to pick a deck that you're comfortable with. But I think the most important rule is don't try to pick a deck that you're not comfortable with, even if it's well positioned, because Star Wars Limited is more than anything like a deck of skill. There's a lot of decision making to make in this game. It's a complex game. There's obviously far better. Not only that, it's a game where you're going to be playing like maybe 5, 6, 7 games in the same day. So if you take a deck that you're not comfortable with, you can compensate not being comfortable with the deck by taking longer to make your plays and think more about your plays. But that's going to burn your brain throughout the day. And by the end, you're going to be exhausted. And you're not going to be able to finish the tournament in good shape. So pick something that you're comfortable with. If there's multiple decks that you're comfortable with, try to think about what the meta is going to look like and pick the best one of those. The one is the most positioned. That's the method I would use.
There you go. So
sorry for not answering your question.
No. I mean, that's good insight. I didn't want, I wasn't expecting a long answer, but it's all good and
You're
helpful.
talking to Thorrk right
now. Yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, I cannot do anything else.
Well, yeah, I better not offer you shout outs then, otherwise we'll be here all night. But no, that's pretty much it for the night, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and yeah, get down to your locals and play these showdowns, guys. Great to see. The game is ever growing, and the more we go to our LGS, the better it's going to be for all. Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and go check out Thorrk's content if you haven't already. Chances are you probably have. Catch you later, guys, and we'll see you.